first Ombudsman of Ontario to appear before committees of the legislature and start out by saying, my dear fellow Ombudsman, because he viewed the role of MPs as being very similar to one of the Ombudsmen, and I think after following the deputations before this committee, it's funny that citizens of Ontario have never confused our roles. We don't duplicate our roles, we complement our roles, and that's what Bill 8 is really about. This is a bill that we've been advocating for 39 years, since 1975. I'd like to thank the government for this initiative, for listening to us during the preparation of this bill, and in particular, former Government Services Minister John Malloy, Treasury Board Minister Greg Matthews, and the Premier, but as well the Progressive Conservative Party and the EP. It's been a very non-partisan approach. I want to give it a day there will be different votes for different reasons, but I know and I feel a lot of support by parliamentarians, and I would like to sincerely thank you for that. I'm not here to advocate for any changes to the legislation. I know that historically we've been on record for the whole of MUSH, but I'm not making any suggestions for amendments because for two reasons. First of all, the government ran on Bill 179, won the election, and reintroduced Bill 8. And so I respect the vote of citizen, I respect democracy, and I'm happy to leave it in the hands of parliamentarians as the bill proceeds. The second reason is that municipalities, universities, and school boards represent 444 municipalities in their respective council, 83 school boards, 22 universities, so we're basically adding 549 bodies to the already 500 or so that we oversee. This area, being the MUS sector, represents $30 billion in the provincial treasury of the total $226 billion, so $26 billion that's handed out to the MUS sector. And finally, we will be overseeing this area. It's a large area, but we're up to the task. Should this honorable committee decide to further the bill, we'd be obviously happy to accept that additional responsibility. I think one of the first points to note about Bill 8 is that the bill does not propose to impose one iota more oversight than that which the province operates with for the last 39 years. You know, you've heard these submissions, doomsday scenarios, all types of things. The last one being that it will run afoul of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and Canada's Constitution. You've heard the themes of all types of confusion being spread by the bill, calamity, literally alienate, destroy other offices, spread chaos, shock our international partners. All this is in your submissions. And we don't need to be alarmist and to come to alarmist conjecture, because we look at the track record of the Ontario Ombudsman in the last 39 years. We've helped save babies and children from death by prompting modern approaches to newborn screening and daycare reform in Ontario. Our work is linked to crackdowns and monitoring fraud and illegally operating colleges. We've led the charge on strengthening police oversight, cracking down on illegal assaults in our jail system. Our work in enforcing open meetings has strengthened democracy at the local level. Now, as I speak to you, there are 10 municipalities who have recorded their closed meetings to allow us to judge and to see whether or not they were meeting illegally or whether it was justified by legislation. Those are all great things, and that's 39 years of track record. Far from weakening the social fabric, the Ombudsman of Ontario has been a positive agent of change, and should this bill pass, we will bring the same level of positive change to municipalities, universities, and school boards. I'd like to deal with a couple of the issues that were brought to your attention. The duplication, confusion argument. We are a check and balance on administrative decisions. You've heard two Auditor Generals testify this afternoon. We will not be doing audits, redoing audits of Auditor Generals. That is a misunderstanding of our function. The Ombudsman is a barometer, a horsefly, an oil can, and a safety valve. We are the horsefly nipping at a bureaucratic beast, nudging it one way or another. We're the oil can reducing friction between rulers and the ruled. We are a safety valve to ensure that the citizens' rights are protected. In the words of the great Canadian scholar, against being accidentally crushed by the vast juggernaut of the administrative machine, which of course, as you've seen, does not make us popular. My time up? Almost?
One final comment.
One final comment. With respect to the submission of the City of Toronto Ombudsman, one brief comment. That office, far from being thriving, is continually under siege. They've tried to reduce her term to 1 year. They've tried to refuse her position, merge them with the other accountability officers. The constitution of that office is one of ombudsman light. It is not able to weather the storm. It's for that reason that it has been always caught in political storms. And I'll leave it at that, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you, sir. So we'll pass it to Ms. Biden.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. In 2012, from your own report, you quote that you received 2,539 complaints from the mush sector in general. You also said that Ontario is the only province in Canada that does not have independent oversight over the healthcare sector, an independent, impartial complaint mechanism for either hospitals or children's aid societies. So this is still the case?
It is still the case.
With this bill?
Yes. As I've said, at this stage, I'm happy to defer to parliamentarians. The patient ombudsman started off in the initial drafts of the bill as a patient advocate. And it's through our work, through the vaccine, when we were told that getting into our office was out of the question, we worked to try to at least strengthen that position. But you are correct in that this bill does not change that.
Actually, you're correct, because it's still the same.
Yes.
I'm quoting you.
Yes.
And you go on to say how patient relations are sort of what the Liberal government is proposing will only add to the frustration. So we've heard some heartbreaking stories. You've heard these stories, especially on children's aid. The provincial advocate is looking for some real power to protect children in this province. It's not reflected in Bill 8. And the health sector has been left out. Why do you think this government refuses to address those two key areas where you have been fighting for now years?
No, I was paying attention to the submissions by hospitals during these hearings, and this kind of idea that, well, the health sector is so complex that we need a specialized ombudsman. It can't fall within the ombudsman's office of the province. It's contrary to what every other province has done. It's contrary to what's being done in the UK, for example. So, we deal with extremely complicated issues on a daily basis. That said, of course, the final position of the Ombudsman's office is not to seek an amendment to the bill, but to support what's there, and eventually, if it doesn't work, then the option will always be to reabsorb that office within ours.
Okay, so as it stands today, though, you welcome the oversight over the MUS part of MUSH. You're hopeful that perhaps one day you would actually have oversight over the hospital sector. It's $52 billion, right? That's a lot of money.
If it works the way it is, God bless the government for doing what they're doing. And if it doesn't work, and many people do have concerns because the patient ombudsman reports within the power of the bureaucracy, not even to the Ministry of the Legislative Assembly. We will be overseeing that office, and we will not hesitate to blow the whistle if it doesn't go well. But by the same token, we're not here to not do anything but support government. That's how we work. We want good governance. And so if the patient ombudsman needs training, if it needs support, advice, counseling, we'll be there for that office.
So
thank you very much. Appreciate it. So we'll move to the government side, Mr. Baker.
Thanks very much. And thank you, sir, for the whole work you do to ensure accountability in government and oversight in government. I think the work that you do is important. Our government's made a commitment to be more open and transparent. As you pointed out, something that the premier campaign we can't do doors or actually people want to support it. And you talked about the importance in your submission of oversight over the MUSH sector. And there are 444 municipalities in our province. And my recollection is that you received about 1,600 complaints from municipalities in 2013 approximately. So of course speaks to the importance of having that providing oversight. Of course, on the issue of the patient ombudsman, we've tried to set that up in a way that is independent. someone who will have his own budget or mandate, someone who's housed with Health Ontario to ensure that what the patient ombudsman receives in terms of input is provided is as quickly as possible actioned upon and acted on in terms of the healthcare sector, but also someone who really is focused on those health sector complaints and concerns, and of course someone who can look at systemic issues across the healthcare sector. So I think that's the rationale as to where we're coming from on the patient ombudsman. Could you speak briefly about why you see what the benefits are to the taxpayers of providing greater oversight, expanding your office's role to the much sector?
Well, as I indicated earlier, 26% of the provincial treasury is handed over basically right now as a blank check to municipalities, universities, and school boards. That's a lot of money. And other provinces have been way ahead of Ontario. And I think that if you look at universities, allegations of sexual harassment, sexual assaults, not having proper codes in place, school boards, is there a week that goes by without a scandal coming out of the school boards? $9 million is missing. Oh, well, chump change. Well, no, $9 million is a lot of money. If you look at municipalities, allegations of corruption, secret meetings, the oversight, in 2008, the Municipal Act was changed to allow municipalities to create their own oversight officers. There's no ombudsman in existence in Ontario, outside Toronto, which was supposed to have one. Auditor Generals, there was about 8 at one point. As soon as they produced unfavorable reports, they were fired. There's 2 left. One in Toronto that has to have one, and one in Ottawa that chose to have one. Integrity officers, we've heard the number today, there are 30 of them, and you're told that, well, this is great traction. Well, there are 444 municipalities who could have had an integrity officer since 2008. And the issue of cost is, to my mind, is not a burden. You have municipalities who are grouping together and saying, we'll have an integrity officer to serve these municipalities. So there's no will at the municipal level to be accountable. What this legislation brings is that accountability.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And Ms. Marshall from the opposition.
Thanks for your presentation, and nice to meet you in person. I've been following you on Twitter for a while, as do many people, and I think that I can't imagine how one ombudsman office can handle what I would expect to be the influx of complaints. We've heard today about some provinces, I think BC, any municipality that has over 100,000 residents has their own ombudsman, and I'm just wondering what kind of formula you would maybe envision for Ontario, where Toronto has an ombudsman, and maybe some of the larger urban centres would have their own ombudsman or an integrity commissioner who's maybe a little bit more accessible to the public. What kind of oversight would you recommend?
I agree with all those things. I agree that all universities should keep their ombudsman and the hospitals should keep their patient advocates. We're not going to be there to second guess decisions of those accountability officers. We're there to look at systemic issues where the system fails. I mean, we oversee the SIU, Special Investigations Unit. The citizens come and call us when there's a police shooting. We can't underestimate people's intelligence. We oversee the Ontario Energy Board, the OMB, the Assessment Review Board. Those tribunals, we respect their authority. And similarly, I would like to see more municipalities go down the route of ombudsman, so that if there is an issue with a pothole or a street light, the local ombudsman can deal with that. If there's a more systemic issue that we see is ingrained, but a local ombudsman is unable to do so because of constraints on their mandate set by city council, that's when we come in. If you look at it, again, instead of these doomsday scenarios that you've been hearing all for the last 2 days, look at our history, 39-year history. When were we last judicially reviewed? I mean, everyone who comes forward here and says, oh, no, there's an issue, even the Auditor General of Ontario, they can all judicially review it. Us, if they believe we've exceeded our jurisdiction or failed to exercise our jurisdiction. Well, I can tell you that in my last 9.5 years as ombudsman, we have not been judicially reviewed once. So, I see too many examples of this, putting up the straw man to knock it down, being afraid of your own shadow. Judges by our track record and by the fact that we get along with government. Every year when I release the annual report, I talk about different issues with government, but I always say we have stellar cooperation. And I would expect that to be the same 9 years from now as we been working in the must sector if the legislation is passed.
Okay, that's great. Okay, well, thank you very much, and I really appreciate you coming before the committee and providing us your insight.
Thank you very much.
Providing us with your insight.